Well, hello and good afternoon to everyone. We are going to get started with our webinar so that we can be respectful of everyone's time here. I'm Leonardo McClarty, and I'm the president of the Howard County Chamber. And it is a pleasure to be back with you all once again as we talk about certainly something that is important to all of us that are in business, and that is business development, and particularly how are we going to go about doing things in this COVID-19 age, and particularly even as we move beyond COVID-19 and what the future holds for all of us. And so we've got, I think, a great speaker that's going to share some insights with us. But before we do that, I want to recognize our annual partners for the year. And so the Chamber is fortunate to have a number of businesses and corporations here in the Howard County area and the greater Baltimore area that have stepped up to support the Chamber in a comprehensive fashion this year. And so you see their logos here on the screen, and those are our 2020 partners. And always want to make sure that we properly recognize and thank them, because truly, without their support this year, the Chamber would certainly would be having major struggles at this particular time. And so thank you to our 2020 annual partners. But next, before I introduce to you our speaker and we share some conversations, first, I want to turn things over to David Gertler. And many of you in the greater Baltimore area perhaps have experienced Trouble, which is a networking platform that ultimately specifically built for business. And the Chamber is proud to have entered into a new exciting relationship with David and Trouble. And so I'm going to give David the opportunity to share a little bit about Trouble and what that means for Howard County Chamber members. And then from there, we will get started with the remaining part of the program today. And so, David, the screen is yours, as we have become used to saying.
Hey, thanks, Leonardo. I think you need to enable attendee sharing.
Yes. There you go. I think you should have it now.
Right. Try this. And good morning, everybody. Hey, I'm David Gertler. I know I see a few familiar faces, so it's always great to talk to folks that I already know. And to those who I don't, a pleasure will be mine, I'm sure. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Treble. Treble is a business networking platform. And as Leonardo said, we're really excited. We've just signed a deal with Howard County Chamber of Commerce to bring Treble as a member benefit to each and every one of you. So what is Treble? Treble is a business networking platform that's designed both for organizations like chambers of commerce, tech councils, alumni associations, as well as for individuals. For organizations, we focus on how they can foster a stronger, more altruistic business networking community. Members helping members find deals, jobs, clients, customers, board appointments, things like that. And for individuals, it's truly a unique CRM for your trusted networking. Most people will ask, all right, how's this different from LinkedIn? We hear that every single time we talk, right? So I usually like to throw a slide like this that kind of describes the difference between us. Many people use LinkedIn as a marketing platform, and that's great. You can reach lots of people, and we're all connected. Our research shows that on average, more than a third of the people that were connected on LinkedIn, we've never had a single interaction with. That's just marketing, right? Send out a big message and hope it sticks and get your name out there. But networking is a totally different thing. And I'm sure you all, as members of the Chamber of Commerce, understand that networking is more personal, it's more intimate. It's me reaching out to somebody that I know and saying, hey, I can use a favor, or do you know a good lawyer, accountant, wealth manager, real estate agent, whatever. And that's the power that we provide, the ability to tap into your trusted network. So for us, it's about the quality of the relationships that you foster, not just the quantity of the connections that you collect. With the Chamber of Commerce, we'll be bringing this into practice. We actually created a tool last year called Meeting Manager. It was designed for both physical in-person events as well as virtual. Who knew that we'd be doing so many virtuals, but we're working with tons of organizations now to help them build a stronger, more network-focused event when they host in virtual networking events. So you'll see this rolled out, and the goal was really to help you network on an event like this. So it's not just sitting back and listening to a keynote speaker or getting updates. Each of you, when we roll this out, will have an opportunity to introduce yourself. And the format is very simple. I know a few of you have participated a number of times. It'll look something like this. You'll have a certain amount of time, 30 seconds, a minute, whatever, depending upon the number of people, to answer 3 key questions. What is your background? How can you help others? And what can others do for you? We call that wishes. And the idea is try to look for ways for people to give you reasons, give you excuses to reach out to other people and say, hey, you mentioned such and such. I know somebody, let me help you. Or, hey, you mentioned so-and-so, and I've been trying to reach that person for 6 months. Would you mind helping me with an introduction? So it's really looking for ways to unlock the power of this Chamber of Commerce and allow members to help each other. During the introductions, we'll encourage you, listen actively, take notes, write down ideas, reach out after the call. The real magic of the networking happens afterwards. But now you'll be armed with real ideas, real reasons, real concepts of who to talk to and what to talk to them about. You'll be able to use the app to share success stories. Hey, so-and-so introduced me to this other person. I really want to give them a little bit of kudos, etc. It's real easy to post your profile and your wishes on Treble. We've got a lot of different tools and tutorials that you can look at. And again, our whole philosophy is based upon altruism. Help others first. And it not only feels good, but by helping others, you're more likely for other people to help you in return. So tap into the power of reciprocity. How we'll get started. Look, we just signed the deal. So look for some emails from the Howard County Chamber of Commerce. Look for some emails from Treble. We'll help you get started. You can go ahead, if you want to jumpstart, download the app from the App Store, or you can just visit our website. We have web as well as mobile applications. You can look at our YouTube channel, 30-second videos, how to post a wish, how to get started, how to make an introduction, etc. And then look for, post your wish, create your profile, attend events, and we look forward to actually rolling this out at the next few Howard County Chamber of Commerce events. So with that, I'll just say thank you.
Thank you, David. And so certainly look forward to bringing this to our members and continuing to add value, because ultimately that is truly what it's about. And so with that, we're now going to enter into a conversation with Theresa Caracol. And so the way this is going to work today, Theresa and I are going to start out by just having a little bit of conversation, and then she's prepared some slides that will really dig into the topic for today. But first, I want to introduce her properly and share with you about her background, because, one of the things I enjoy about this job is that I get a chance to interact with what I call a lot of rock stars. And so Theresa truly is a rock star from a sales and marketing perspective. And so she's the founder and CEO of Achieve Unite, and it is a strategic consulting and education firm that provides channel, partnering, and business acceleration services to global enterprises. She offers partner and channel development, go-to-market strategy, channel integration, and executive education forums. She has more than 20 years of experience in building and managing multi-million-dollar indirect channel teams and strategic alliance programs from inception to sales success. She co-founded an industry channel think tank designed to influence and support the industry's digital transformation, numerous advisory boards, and was one of 15 women selected for the first Leadership Foundry in Washington, D.C., which is an organization dedicated to mentoring and recruiting women for positions on corporate boards. Also, Theresa has received numerous IT industry channel accolades, including the Informa Top Industry Influencer in 2017, and also CRN's Top 50 Most Influential Channel Chiefs in 2014. And so I could go on and on about her. She has a bachelor's from Virginia Tech. So she's if she tells some jokes maybe you don't like, it's because she's kind of hokey. And then has an MBA from the University of Wisconsin and an executive master's in leadership from Georgetown University's Business School. And again, so her areas of expertise are channel transformation, merger and acquisition, channel integration, growth strategies, and executive learning forums. And so with that, it is certainly my pleasure to have with us Theresa Caracol. And so we're going to jump right into things. And I'm going to lead off with just a few questions before we jump into kind of the more, I guess, traditional PowerPoint or what have you. And that is, Theresa, obviously, one of the reasons we have you here today is that as we've moved in for the last 3 months and we've all been seated in our home offices, our dining rooms, our basements, maybe the occasional physical office, the one question that I know has come up oftentimes has been, how are we going to meet people? How are we going to go about business development when one of the main reasons people join oftentimes the chamber, a BWI partnership, an AFCEA, if they're in the GovCon space, is they want to meet a number of people in a short amount of time without having to try to do things maybe on a onesie-twosie basis. And so how do we move forward in this day where we can't gather oftentimes in groups larger than maybe 4 or 5?
Well, I agree. And thank you for having me and for that beautiful introduction. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I'm thrilled to be here with you all. And it's a new world. And I think we're all navigating this new world together. And so I view 3 key ways for us to stay connected right now. One is clearly these virtual forums. We can have conversations and you and I were a good example, right? We were going to do this as a webinar, but we really want to have conversations. So we moved it into a forum where we could talk together and you all can have an opportunity to talk with us. So, I think that's really key. I think the webinars are great, but opportunities virtually to have conversations are even better. So that's one. The second is, don't underestimate the power of one-to-one. I have had more one-to-one, meaningful, deep conversations that end up probably leading to business, but they're real, they're authentic, they're fantastic, and they've happened since COVID. So there's something about the one-to-one that's more important than ever. And then number 3, and I'll give a shout out to David and the social media, the LinkedIn, the automation, there is a power in one-to-many, and that hasn't gone away, and it's not expensive, and you can create your, whatever it is you want to be and pick your platforms. And we've got some ebooks on our site if you want to learn more about how to do that well. That's the third area that I think is really important in this new world.
So again, not losing sight of again, this personal interaction, but again, with that, I guess the big thing that people are always talking about is time, because again, with the one-on-one, it takes a lot more time than perhaps, again, if you go to the big event and you can work the room and meet maybe 20 people at a moment. And so what are perhaps some things in which you can maybe do that you can really maximize that one-on-one, but perhaps do it perhaps in an effective but yet expedient time frame?
Yeah. So, I think the one-on-one has to be broken down if you're in a B2C market versus a B2B market. And then you've got to break it down further. If you're in a B2B large enterprise, mid-size, small business, your strategy might differ, right? So if you're in the B2C and you want to do one-on-one, you've got to have a lot of one-on-one. So you've got to minimize that quantity of time. So you might use, you might use text, you might use emails, you might use other mediums that can reduce that quantity of time, but still create the connection. Video, I'm a huge fan of video. Our young people consume a lot of their learning on video. So, anytime that you can create an experience and let people see into your heart, into your mind, into your business, that's also a great way to create connections. And And then if you're in the B2B space, I think part of what we're going to talk about in the natural business development, my good friend Isabel has just published a book on natural business development, and she's in the UK and she's a superstar. And we're going to talk about this natural evolution. But this natural evolution is really, really important if you're in the B2B space, because it is a long game. You're not playing the short game of golf, you're playing the long game. And you're playing the cumulative effect of 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10-year relationships in this space. And so we have to really look at it as a long game and look at it as a long-term approach to business.
So then one thing that I guess a quick takeaway is really kind of, I think, entering to a shifting of our thought in the sense of really developing perhaps deeper relationships that lend themselves to greater referrals and perhaps really more partnerships, as opposed to that which may be a little bit more transactional. And we end up moving kind of just, hey, if it works, if business can happen here, fine. But then if it's not, I'm not as focused on learning perhaps a little bit more about you or your business, I'm moving on. But really taking the time to dig deeper into that relationship so that we can really get into how can we help one another.
That's beautiful. I love it. Yes. And the other thing about that is, if you play the long game and we can help one another and we build these long-term relationships, those referrals happen. And I'll give you an example. Rob Ray at Data, we just did a blog for him, and it's going to be published through CompTIA, which is the Global IT Association. They have a big conference in August, which, by the way, is free this year because it's all being done virtually. And Rob talks about his clients, his entire client base. They are 100% do business with partners. His entire client base, he doesn't refer to as clients. He refers to them as partners. And everything, 75 to 85% of their entire messaging as a company is done not about their products. It's done to help their partners build their businesses. Mm. And so what a brilliant strategy, right? And so they're 100% doing business with partners. All of their clients are their partners, and they spend 75 to 85% on their messaging helping their partners build their businesses. And they're still the fastest growing and #1 leader in their space. So, that's sort of at the edge of what you can really do, with that kind of a mindset.
Wow. So again, and I think David even touched on it when he talked about trouble, and that is kind of that thought of how can I help you, which then it comes back to, obviously, if you provide some support and assistance to your client, customer, what have you, then hopefully they turn around and say, well, hey, you know what, Theresa, you've been such a great partner of me. What can I help you do? Who do you need to meet?
Yeah. And this is a good example of that, right? You reached out and said, hey, can you do something? And I do it because it's the right thing to do. And we all want to do good in the world right now because that's a good thing to do and people need it. And I have two very special friends who I also wanted to do this because Jackie Scott runs the Health and Human Services, right, in Howard County. Cheryl Shapiro and she's just recently joined our team to really help in working and consulting and helping on this diversity initiative in the technology industry. And Achieve is going to really get involved and help lead the change we want to be. And so Jackie's going to be helping us there. And secondly, Cheryl is an amazing consultant in Howard County, and she has been a critical component of building our ACE leadership program, which has had over 120 women go through. We're launching the first co-ed class in September. Somebody from AWS just signed up for that co-ed class, and I'm really excited. So I want to support where both of those amazing women came from. And we connected, a funny story about that, we connected over 15 years ago at our Georgetown leadership experience. So that bond was so deep there that we now work together many years later and are in partnership to make a difference in the world.
Wow, excellent. So one last maybe question here before we kind of dig into some of the slides we have here. And that is, I'm sure that there's some that are listening in and they're saying, hey, this whole idea of helping each other is great. But you know what? I need the cash register to ring, so to speak. I need, invoices processed. And you know, one of the other big things you and I had a chance to talk about yesterday was the fact that, let's face it, over these last few months, there have been a number of free services, free webinars, free content, a lot of free things. And people are starting to also think about, how do I shift from, hey, this free stuff has been great, but I got payroll to meet. I've got my own expenses and I need to get paid. And so how do we start getting into that mind shift, perhaps, of where everything we've either given away or it's been given to us, and we get used to now being able to talk about, hey, this is what it's going to cost, or hey, I need to charge. So kind of speak to that a little bit.
So I would say two things about that. One is, I think we are again entering maybe a little more normalized sense of business. So I think we all have permission to be back doing business again, right? And we all need to do business. And the second part of that is, many of us are small businesses. And one of the things that I have really been honest about, and I'll tell you a story, when all of this happened, we actually lost one of our biggest clients. And I was in tears because I wanted to make sure I was going to keep my entire team. And I got on the phone with a dear friend of mine from Lenovo, who is also on our education advisory board. And I said, hey, we're a small business. Let me tell you what's going on. And he said, you know what? I got an idea for you. And lo and behold, 12 weeks later, we have an unbelievable business opportunity that is groundbreaking and could be incredibly innovative for he and another partner. And it happened because I was probably vulnerable, right? And I had the courage to be a little bit vulnerable with him and really transparent and authentic, and amazing things happened. So, I think it's okay to say we're a small business and this is what we're encountering or experiencing right now. And, create the space for people to do good things, and I also believe, and I'll make this the third point, if you do good in the universe, there is a universe factor, right? And whatever you believe, whatever, but there is something about the universe that when you put it out there, it comes back. And I can't explain it, but since I've started this company, it happens in spades and I see it all the time. And so I just would encourage us to do that for others, and amazing things happen.
Excellent, excellent. So maybe with that, let's maybe transition and go into some of a few of the slides that we have here. And certainly for those, as you've either heard something already, or as Theresa talks, if there are any questions, you can certainly put them in the chat line here. And or better yet, maybe if you I'll make sure I'm following the gallery view. And if you have a question, you can just use the little reaction tool and raise your hand and then come off mute and ask your question. Because again, we want this to be certainly interactive and not just solely where you're in your everyday webinar that you just listen and multitask and so forth. So I'm going to hit share screen here. And
before you do, this is Bella. She is my business partner in our office, and this is how she spends her days. So she comes with me on most of these virtual webinars these days.
Let's see here. I think okay. Yeah, I'm sure.
Perfect. Thank you. Good. Does anybody have any questions or comments before we get into this conversation, this next conversation? Okay. Please feel free to offer up opinions, ideas, experiences. We would love it. And David, I'm happy to chat with you offline for sure. That'd be great. And I saw Jackie, which I love. Good. All right. So business development in a COVID world. And, I thought you had a really good point that we actually started with the bottom, make things happen. And Howard County, you added the top, which is a visual of the new world, right? And I just thought that was super powerful, and one of the reasons I like doing business with him, because he brings value to every conversation. So good. Next chart. So some common questions that we ask ourselves, and I would encourage you to ask yourself, do you believe in collaborative solution selling? And there is actually an ISO standard on collaborative business relationships. It was ratified in 2017. We actually build a whole training program around it. And it is it's a pretty incredible approach to how you do business company to company. Are you getting enough productivity with your partners and their clients, right? How many of us have relationships where we could be working with that company or that individual and their tentacles and their network? And so how do we think about relationships where we can be doing both? You know, the story about Rob Ray, right? Do you treat your client as a partner, and the difference that makes when it's a partnership versus a customer relationship? And do you need to be more strategic? How do we become more strategic with our clients? What does it mean to be a trusted business advisor or a trusted advisor for our client? How does that change from a transaction to a different kind of a relationship? You know, and then how are we all handling business development in this post-COVID world? Next chart. You want to jump to the next chart? Perfect. So this is from my good friend Isabel, and she has a book. It is on Amazon. It's doing very well. It was just recently published, but I think it's a perfect time to share some of her work. And she really talks about connecting, discovering, sharing, and collaborating. And you see there's nothing about selling in here. And she is a very natural business developer and a closer. And she and I have come together. We have a couple of programs in the market that we've done for clients around this approach. Next chart. So when we talk about connecting, what do we mean, right? We talk about unleashing our secret army, and the secret army are, look at me. I didn't get paid a dime to do this for Isabel, but here I am sharing Isabel's story with 29 of you. So how do we connect, collaborate, care about one another, and then help advocate for them? And then that universe factor starts to play in. And we talk about building rapport, right? How do we build real rapport? And this is the first part of her book, is around how you build authentic connections that last lifetimes, that last much longer than a transaction. Next chart. And step number 2 is, how do you discover, right? And we do a lot of work in our Partner Performance Advisor certification program about effective questioning, effective listening, understanding the underlying motivations, checking that you do understand, level 1, level 2, level 3 questions. So really the art of business development is in discovery, right? Remember we learned 2 ears and 1 mouth. And so this whole process is all about her area of discovery. And we have a program that has one of 3 competencies, is all about the soft skills, the EQ of partnering. Yeah, core values for many of us, right, Danae? Good, next chart. And I'm going to I'm sending my email now to all of you. And I would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. If there is anything that I can do to help any of you at any time, please don't hesitate. And we do publish on Achieve Unite a number of thought leadership areas all about partnerships and all about alliances and relationships and how you build, your own indirect channel, your own indirect go-to-market. How do you have advocates out there, whether those are influencers or whether you're actually transacting through them, and they're a whole partner ecosystem for you. So then in step 3 of her approach, we talk about sharing, right? One of the things I always love about Isabel is, I remember we were at dinner with a prospect, and Isabel would tell stories, and she would have a point. She would tell a story, and then she would have a counterpoint, another point, and it was always a success story about something that she had done well with another client, but it was designed to do learning for that particular person. But in the process of that, it built her own credibility. And so how do you do facts and stories that help really convey a point to a prospect, but they also are educating, not selling? And in that process, you build your own credibility. And so this is all about creating that point and sharing without being a salesperson. Next chart. And then her last step is number 4, right? How do we collaborate so that we are solving problems? We're solving issues. We're working to accelerate business together. We're delivering wins. We understand exactly what our client or our partner's success metrics are, and we're in the boat with them. I was on the phone with an automation company yesterday, and he told me 2 things. He said, 1, I'm doing free proof of concepts for anybody that wants them. Get us in. We will do that concept for 30 days. I said, that's brilliant. Good for you. But the second one he said is, I'm going to give our partners, and we're going to adopt an adoption pricing model. So they only pay if those partners are using our platform actively. They don't pay otherwise. I said, you know what? That's brilliant, because now you're directly to not. And then he said, not only am I doing that, I'm going to go do some of the business development work for them to get them to adopt the platform. I said, you know what, bud? That's brilliant. Good for you. You know, because now they only pay for me with success. And I'm demonstrating to you that I'm in the boat with you, and you pay me as I help you be more successful. So, you know, I'm not saying that that's your answer, but how can you come up with creative ways, especially in this COVID world, to do things that are, you know, budget's a big issue right now, right? So it has a return on investment, or it has a proof with performance model, as opposed to a straight OpEx or, you know, a big cash flow impact to companies or individuals. So how do we deliver win-wins? Danae is talking about, and storytelling. Joel, thank you so much, right? Storytelling is super powerful, and facts and data and stories, mix the 2 up, and you've got a really good recipe for success when you're in the collaboration mode. Good, so this is just a little plug for, the next chart is a plug for Isabel. If you're interested in her book, it's called Natural Business Development, and you can get it on Amazon, and you can see here more information. She's a great friend, and it's a terrific read. Good, next chart. And then I'll just finish with, we have launched and have been very successful with several companies over the last 6 months around the Partner Performance Advisor. And, you know, this is around helping sellers do what my friend Rob Ray does, and helping them really be trusted partner advisors with their clients and becoming partners. And so there's one about the partnering expert. There's a second competency about a growth consultant. How are you directly tied to revenue and growth? And the third one is the collaborative coach, right? How are you nurturing and developing those relationships? So if you're interested in learning more about that, if you're interested in learning more about Achieve, about Cheryl's leadership program called ACE that we do in the market for women and now co-ed, please just let me know. I'm happy to share with you. And I think that's it on the charts. Yeah, I will just say we've been doing flipped classroom, virtual video-based learning for the last 2 years. We were Zoom friends years ago, before Zoom became so mainstream. But we're a big fan of flipped classroom. So that means that you do some of your homework outside, and then you're interacting and having conversations in the classroom. So with that, I would love to open it up for some conversation.
So I'm going to maybe get things started. So, Theresa, one of the things you talked about, in the sense of a lot about partnering and the relationship piece. And I'm sure that there's some that may be on here and they're thinking, okay, well, yes, I know a lot of people, but I guess if nothing else, in terms of trying to take these relationships deeper, how do you get started? And where, you know, where do you, again, I guess maybe I'll leave it at that, is how do you get started in the sense of maybe determining who perhaps makes a a good partner or a good, advisor or what have you?
So I'm going to separate that question into a good advisor and then a good partner. And so let's talk about advisors first. And by the way, sometimes they intermingle, sometimes not. But one of the best things that we did was set up an advisory board. And it is not a corporate board. I wasn't ready to do that, but we have an incredible advisory board. And those advisors are all in different domains. We do quarterly and semi-annual discussions with them, some as a group, some one-on-one, about where we're going with our education practice and getting their input and their advice. We have actually a meeting tomorrow with this education advisory board. So I would encourage, my sweet aunt said, well, I don't need your help. I know what I know about financials. And I said, well, that's okay, Mary. I said, but sometimes we all know what we know. And I have 9 advisors that help me on our company on a regular basis. And they all have different domains of expertise. So how do we have a really structured advisory board that ends up activating for you, but I think that's really crucial. Then the second part of it is, now I've got to look at my clients, my prospects, my partners, and I would really encourage you to build your own matrix, right? Build your own quadrant and think about a quadrant, think about 4 quadrants, okay? Up on the top right side, and actually we'll do I wonder if I can draw this for you. Think about the left and the right axis. The bottom axis is performance, okay? So the bottom axis is your client, your partners, your prospects. Are they already performing for you? The left axis, the vertical one, is potential. So what's the potential of that prospect, that client, or that partner? And over on the top right are your MVPs. Your MVPs are folks who are already doing work with you, but there's still a lot more potential, right? They're already engaged, they're already winning business with you, but you should still be doing more. And then the top left are these high potentials. There's huge potential. I might have 5 of them. If I just cracked 1 of them, my company's in a different ballgame than it was a year ago. If I crack 3 of them, I'm a different size company. And so you need to have a few of those. And then down on the bottom, and guess what we find when we go to do segmentation in many cases? The bottom left is our laggards. Those are the ones that are never going to do more than they are. Maybe they're only doing one thing, maybe they're doing nothing, but they tend to suck our time. And the bottom right is these cash cows who we're doing some with, but they're not going to be able to do anymore. It's saturated. That's it. That's done. And what you find in many, many companies, both small and large, is that where we spend our time and our investments are in those bottom 2 buckets. Where we should be spending our time and our investments are in these top 2 buckets. And so I would just encourage you, if you haven't been through a segmentation exercise, to really build that out and then align your goals, your resources, your energy, your time, whatever you have that's in your wheelhouse to those top 2 buckets. And it has been a really a great engagement for us as a company, but even more importantly, we do this with our clients and their partners, and it has transformational results. So that's my 2 cents on partner and client segmentation and going through that exercise.
Which I would say maybe in some respects, it sounds like really thinking a little bit more strategic about where you spend your time.
Well, and for many of us, time is our only asset, right? If you're an individual contributor or you're a 1-person company, your number 1 asset is your time. And what we often find is we're spending our time, me included. I do it too, right? I look and I go, oh my goodness, look how much time I've spent on this, and it's not going to go anywhere. Now, sometimes it might be a high potential for a period of time. And then you say, you know what, I actually have one of these situations. I have put 12 months of work into that. I'm going to move it down, right? And I'm going to focus in other places.
Excellent, excellent. So any questions from those listening in or comments? Certainly want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to ask a question if there was something that maybe you've heard that you want to know more about, or if there was something you was hoping you would hear that maybe you haven't heard it yet. Again, we want to make sure that you have an opportunity to ask your questions, and maybe while you do so, something that I'll ask while people perhaps are typing, and that is, so let's talk about social media, and particularly as it relates to, let's say the likes of LinkedIn and so forth, and maybe certainly how people can really perhaps utilize that maybe more effectively, because certainly I think that might be a tool, and maybe perhaps even with yourself, if you would share, that experience, maybe in terms of how you use it in either cultivating relationships or seeking new opportunities.
Great. So with social media, I feel we have to be careful, because here's some of the mistakes that I see. And I've been on this journey. I was a rookie of social media probably a year and a half ago. Another gentleman from your county who I adore is John. And he's got some great marketing and help with social media that if you need it, I would encourage you to engage with him. He's wonderful.
And just to interrupt for a second, for those of you who she's referring to John Barnes with Rebel Haiku. And so if you don't know John, certainly he is a very, very creative type, and just full of phenomenal ideas in the marketing, branding, communication space. So that's about John, but I'll turn it back.
A client and a partner, and he was on our team, and he's really helped us establish ourselves in this market. So I can't say enough great things about him. But anyway, what he's really taught me is one, to really pick your medium. And I will make sure that we get you guys the link on our site to a book that we actually published for one of our clients, Commvault, but you all can use it. And it's all about building social selling and building your own brand on social media and how you go through this process. And it's got great step-by-step inputs for it. So you have to really be diligent about what mediums you want to use, and maybe not oversaturating, maybe not undersaturating, maybe not overcommitting and under-delivering, but doing the opposite. You've got to decide who you want to be, right? For me, it is really important that I am me, and it's really important that I help others, and it's really important that I stand up for certain values. And it's really important that I advocate and be a leader in this partnering. I truly believe partnerships are game changing for companies. And so I want to lead in that charge and help companies figure out how to do that. And so those were my values. And so that's what's reflected in our approach to social media. But each of you have your own, whatever that looks like, and making sure that that gets reflected in your strategy for social media. And then, the thing, I don't really use Facebook for business. I use it for personal, but I have many business colleagues who have become friends who are in my Facebook, and I love being able to keep up with them and see what they're doing and, the conversations they're having. So, also figuring out what you want to use for personal, what you want to use for business. Mine happen to be integrated, but I use them for different purposes.
Excellent. And I think that is something that's definitely key in the sense of how you utilize the different platforms, and even down to what you post on the different platforms as well. And so, again, I guess I'm just going to follow, see if there's anything here in the chat that I may have missed.
Yeah, and while you're doing that, I'm going to show you something that my grandma's 101. And so she gave my boys this, but the irony of this is it all is magnetic and it all goes together. And if you can play around with it, it wants to be together and it wants to be in a circle, and it's gravitating towards that, so how can we create this in our businesses and help build circles, both for ourselves, but for others?
So a business gravitational pull.
A business gravitational pull, yes.
Excellent. So let's see here. I guess so. Some of the things we've covered, just to kind of pull all of this together. And the one thing that I guess that I'm taking from this, and I think sometimes we go to different maybe webinars or things, and we're maybe looking for silver bullets. And I think the one thing that I've taken from our conversation is one, just talking about the importance of right now is a time for us to further develop and cultivate those relationships that we've either started or that we've developed over time. And then within those relationships, kind of the four big things that I'm taking from this is one, authenticity in terms of really being true to who you are and your company's values or business's values. Second is truly looking for partners. And then third, developing those advocates. And I guess maybe on that, perhaps just share with us a little bit, maybe how do you get perhaps, I guess, whether it's partners or what, how do you further develop those advocates? And maybe it's just simply based off of if you do good work, they advocate for you. But, you know, how does, I guess, how do you get others to maybe in some respects to start thinking about talking about you or maybe better yet, maybe share with us, when do you choose to advocate or talk about some of your clients?
That's a great question. So I'll start with the first part of that question around, we actually have a community of amazing ACE alumni. So they've been through Authentic Leadership, Collaboration, Empowerment, this Leadership by Influence program. 120 women have been through this program. So they've become a community of women, and we have a weekly subscription that they get, and we also offer it to all of our people who you have to sign up, and it's a weekly premium subscription, and it's, you know, we curate leadership content that is in line with our values around authentic leadership, empowerment, partnerships, and that comes out every week for them. And so we do that. We also have a community for them to be involved and to share and to, you know, work with one another. We're doing this, we're talking about diversity, and we're going to have some hard conversations for many of these folks over the next 2 weeks. And it's a maximum 25 people coming together that Jackie and Cheryl are actually facilitating because they've got deep expertise in this racial topic. And they're going to be facilitating those conversations. So, and we're going to come out with some actions out of that. You know, and so all of those are ways that we help to build the community. You know, and then there's advocacy that happens naturally. They refer people to ACE. They, you know, they do beautiful things in the industry. They recognize one another. It's, you know, it's really powerful, and they have their own relationships. And many of them have also helped me in that process. So that's part of it. And then the second part is, you know, being really selective about when you ask for help or when you ask for advocacy, because there are some people who I hear from once or twice a year. And it's usually because they need something. It isn't usually to connect or to help or to do something. It's, you know, and vice versa. And then there are other people that I have a relationship with, and I find I have that relationship on an ongoing basis, and we're each filling each other's bucket. And then once in a while we need to take some out, right, to do something for one another. So, you know, making really sure that if you're going to go ask folks, you're selective about it, and that you're putting, anybody read How Full Is My Bucket? It's a great book, but it's about filling other people's buckets. And then you can take some out every so often, but we have to make sure that we're filling the bucket, not just asking. So that's the second part of it. And then the third part is I will advocate. One, I won't put my name behind someone unless I have firsthand proof of their experience, their work, their success, their results. So, you know, but if I do, I'm like I just did for John Barnes, right? I have experienced John Barnes' work, and I admire John Barnes. And I also know John Barnes will tell you when it's time to not do something anymore. You know, he was the first one to say, hey, you need to shift gears, we need to do something different, and that's out of my domain. And so that also made me respect him even more.
Excellent. And I think that's a great point in a sense of, and that gets back into even to the authenticity in terms of being honest with someone and as you develop these relationships. And so, and something that I'm going to add just from one of the chat room comments, and this is from David Gertler, and that is, you know, ultimately getting back to the fact that, as he put here, that people will really know when you are really trying to actually help them, and when it is in their best interest and when it's genuine. as opposed to when you're trying to do it because you're trying to get something out of it. And I think that's one of these big things that right now that we can really look at and reflect upon over these last several weeks as we've all dealt with this whole COVID piece. And that is really trying to do things from a genuine basis. The other thing I was going to touch on that I think was also key, the fourth point that I was going to just share that I think we've taken from this morning is truly the importance of collaboration. And I think that over these, again, over the next several months ahead, I think looking at, again, who is it that we can work with as well as we continue to try to grow our businesses and spheres of influences as well. And so, so with that, we're coming up on 12 o'clock, and certainly I always want to make sure that, that we start on time, and even if we get off track on the start end, that we always end on time. And so I thank all of you for from sitting in with us this morning, and hopefully there have been some nuggets and things that have been shared that you found of value. We'll certainly make sure that we follow up and share some of the links with you. And just a couple of things that I will share with you in the days ahead to be on the lookout for. One, as we made the announcement related to trouble. So we'll be doing a couple of rollout sessions on how to properly use trouble. We'll also be looking at incorporating that into some of our future networking events to really create opportunities for business development and just networking in this virtual realm. But the other thing that I would say to be on the lookout as well for the next few weeks, upcoming sessions, July 9th is going to be, we'll have with us Dale Carnegie, and we're going to ultimately be talking about having difficult conversations. And certainly as we think about everything that's taking place in our world right now, particularly whether it's around race, whether it's around gender bias, whether it's around our justice system, policing, et cetera, even down to the next several months with politics, or better yet, from a true business standpoint, maybe if you have some underperformers, but how do you have difficult conversations and ultimately being able to agree to disagree agreeably? And so that's going to be coming up on the 9th of July. So stay tuned for that. And then also, latter part of July, we'll also be coming back again, talking about from an operations standpoint, everybody that leases space is familiar perhaps with what's referred to as common area maintenance. And so you get these CAM charges on your, that you get every year related to your lease. Well, all of that is predicated on various assessments that come forward from the property assessments on buildings. And then, but how is all that going to be done, and how are CAM going to be impacted as a result of COVID-19 and so forth? So we'll be ultimately discussing the conversations you should be having with your property management and with your leasing team from a business operations standpoint as everyone continues to monitor cash flow, et cetera. So just a couple of things. And then lastly, I certainly would be remiss if I did not mention, we roll out our risk management series related to our cyber conference this Thursday. So the cyber conference is now going to be a risk management series that we kick off this Thursday. Details are on the Chamber's website, but this Thursday from 1 to 2:30. So with that, Theresa, I want to thank you for sharing with us this morning all of your insights, and thank you all for participating, and certainly have a great rest of your day, and see you soon.
Thanks for having me. Good luck. Be safe.
Thank you.
And
All right.
contact me if I can help at all.
All right. Excellent. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.